Ethan Quant here.
Derek Smith Jr.
Rabina Apia.
Terrell Store.
Nathaniel Butler. To talk about their secrets to success.
You're watching Linked Up on LinkedIn.
Linked Up on LinkedIn.
Linked Up on LinkedIn.
Linked Up on LinkedIn.
Hi, welcome to the second episode of Linked Up on LinkedIn. I'm your host, Matt Sweeting, and I'm super excited to launch this program where we're going to talk about life, business, and professionalism. Today, we have as our guest on the show, Derek Smith Jr., and I got his profile open here, and Derek W. Smith Jr., who has the acronyms or the accreditations, a CAMS and CRCMP is a senior risk and compliance professional. He's a certified anti-money laundering specialist. He's a Rotarian. He's a public speaker. He's also the top 40 under 40, one of the top 40 under 40 leaders. And is compliance and money laundering MLRO officer at Higgs & Johnson, a leading law firm in the country. So Derek has a extremely robust bio here on LinkedIn. And the reason why we wanted to do it here is because when you think about social media and you think about professionals, it is usually the social media that we're least attentive to. And so Derek has obviously put some attention into updating his LinkedIn profile. Derek, it's a pleasure having you as our second guest on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, Matt, and it's good to be here. I'm excited to talk about compliance in the profession.
Yes. and that's a good segue because you know when I texted you about this, Derek, and I've been thinking about compliance, and I saw your pieces that not only you do for Eyewitness News but other publications as well. And see your beautiful photo there in the newspaper. I think about how much compliance has gotten a better shine, a better look, more appealing promotion around it over the last, I would say, probably 5 years. Are you in agreement with this? Have you noticed this as well, that compliance has a different feel in this day and age?
What I would say is that the feel is different, the requirements are different, and the look may be changing.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. So let's talk about the role of a compliance officer. Let's start there, Derek. Tell us what a compliance officer does.
Yeah, sure. So let me first indicate that a compliance officer in one organization may look different than a compliance officer in another. What you notice a compliance officer in a law firm versus a real estate firm versus a commercial bank versus a private equity firm versus a hospital, okay, versus a police force will all look and feel different. However, there are one or two points that are constant amongst them all. They all are there for the simple root point to ensure that the organization is aware of its regulatory environment, and it also has the policies and procedures that are at minimum put in place within their particular organization to meet that regulatory demand. And where there are any types of breaks and discrepancies, those breaks and discrepancies are mitigated, they are managed, and they are monitored until they are fully removed.
Understood. And so this would we say, and again, I'm a layman in these terms, Derek, so please help me out here. Would we say that there's been an increase in demand for professionals in compliance post-FATCA? Is that fair to say?
Post-FATCA, that's a very interesting point. If we're looking at it from the Bahamian standpoint, the direct change in the interest and or the demand is correlated to the repeal and replaced Financial Transaction Reporting Acts, Financial Transaction Regulations, and POCA of 2018 and their subsequent amendments. Within 2018, it then brought designated non-financial businesses and professionals under the purview of the regulation. So before that point in time, the banks were regulated, offshore and onshore. After that point in time, then you had the real estate firms now being regulated. You had the law firms now being regulated. And you have other designated non-financial businesses and professions being regulated. So you can correlate the demand within our Bahamas to the fact of the regulations changing.
Yeah. So you mentioned
that can be quantified.
Understood. You mentioned a couple acronyms. You mentioned POCA, FTRA, and I started with the one FATCA. Help us with those three acronyms, please.
Sure. So POCA, and as you know, we have a home office now due to COVID-19 and all of the things. So if my sons or one of my many decide to pop in, that's my disclaimer, right?
Of course.
So you have the Proceeds of Crime Act. You have the Proceeds of Crime Act when I say POCA, okay? And that provides the framework for what happens when an offense is created, along with other points in reference to our financial community, okay? FTRA, which is the Financial Transaction Reporting Act, FTRR, which is Financial Transaction Reporting Regulation, okay? As we move on from there, you're talking about CRS, with Common Reporting Standards, which is generally within the European environment. You're talking about FATCA, and that's basically a US-based requirement.
I got you. So, when we talk about this diverse background of yours, you and I originally connected. I think it was more OYP and Junior Achievement was where we initially rubbed shoulders. Tell us about your maturation from when you and I connected, and you ran your own business for many, many years, to now. Give us the short version of that journey for you.
All right, so the short version is that I was led by God's steps. That's a short version, period. Mm-hmm. The medium version would be as I was afforded opportunities upon opportunities based on hard work and persons thinking that I may have had something that I did not see in myself over the last 21 years. The first opportunity was through Ray Winder and Kendra Christie at then Deloitte. One was a senior partner, one was the manager, and it gave me opportunities in auditing, liquidation, client accounting, corporate services. As I moved into City Trust, I was given an opportunity there by one of the past presidents of the Bahamas Association of Compliance Officers, Natasha Bastian and Stacia Major. And they brought me into the first iteration of what I saw was compliance. Okay. After we moved on from there, I moved into my personal business. That was interesting enough, started as photography with my wife, started as photography and invitations and design, and then morphed into public relations, morphed into new media marketing before a person's even coined what new media marketing was, website design, so on and so forth. That afforded me some local and international opportunities to work with some strategic partners. I re-entered the financial space in 2015, and from then I've moved through fiduciary risk, I've moved through internal audit, also compliance, and the combination and the culmination now, which is risk and compliance within the designated non-financial services businesses and profession, which is at the law firm.
Right.
And that's me in a nutshell over 21 years. Yeah.
Good. Yes.
Medium version. And I really appreciate that.
So let's talk about in my notes to you earlier, I was talking about the fact that, and I believe it's fair to say fact, that when you go to career day, and I think, we had something similar in Junior Achievement where, a number of businesses would come out and we want to spark the young people's thoughts about what you're going to do with your life. Have you ever heard a young person say,
Yes.
I want to be a compliance officer? That's not that, you don't usually hear that, do you?
That is not a usual question. And that's definitely not a usual statement. The reality of the matter is the more the professions that have been here for time, such as the accountancy, medicine, and law, engineering, those that were built through times and periods in history for a particular reason, okay? Those were the ones that personally put their hands up for. But I can tell you that all of those professions lend to good feeders for compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mhm.
you need to know your history, you need to know your law, you need to understand accounting, you understand controls. Yes, all of these are good assets for somebody who's interested in the compliance and risk profession. And I use it
Absolutely.
interchangeably because those two are married, whether persons want to believe it or not.
Yeah, yeah. Let's then talk about your move to communicate compliance in a different way. It must be, when I read your publications and your consistency in doing so, it must be a labor of love to continually share that message in the multiple ways that you do. Tell me about your effort and your logic behind doing that.
No problem. So I've always wanted to write. And I looked at everything as either an obstacle or an opportunity, okay, through every situation. And as we went into what was the pandemic, and I heard a lot of local and international leaders, and I inverted commas, but I would say as managers or heads of organizations and governments, speak to the fact that we could not have been prepared. And the reality was, that is far from the truth. Okay. Within the risk and compliance world, especially for those who have been in a regulated environment, and I've had the opportunity to work in a multinational bank, okay, where I had opportunities to work with my Switzerland, my Zurich, my Singapore, my Kenyan counterparts, and testing their environment. We have something called business continuity plan. And this was second nature to many of these organizations. And this is why you see the regulated industries faring very well compared to unregulated industries. Because within the Bahamas, for example, this was mandatory from basically 2008. So basically 2008, 2009, 2010, they're like, I need to see a BCP or some version of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you talk about threats, and you say, why am I doing? I started to write because I realized that persons didn't understand it. And they were speaking from a place of they may have heard some clap notes and some persons who they respected say something and then they repeated it within their own domains. Okay. So I wanted to start to speak and that persons understand that compliance is something that is a partner for your business.
Yes.
A lot of organizations look at compliance as a risk and an expense. And I beg to say different. I would say without compliance, you may have bigger expenses like financial risks and fines, okay?
Yes.
And onboarding unscrupulous clients, which will then be risky to your business. You took 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years to build
for sure.
in one shot.
For sure. Absolutely. So
that's why I started to work. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I got you. I appreciate that. So let's talk about if I'm in the financial services arena. Maybe I'm a teller at the bank. Maybe I'm somewhere in the field, in the industry. Tell me, how do I get into compliance? Where would you suggest I go? I'm second year teller at one of the commercial institutions, but I want to make that transition into compliance. Where do I get the education? What opportunities might there be for me? Blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So because I am an executive of the Bahamas Association of Compliance Officers, and we have a very good relationship with BIFs, it would be remiss if I didn't indicate that you should seek the ICA examination that's offered by BIFs in collaboration with Bahamas Association of Compliance Officers and other partners. That's an option. Okay. look into that, see what are the minimum requirements there. I am CAM certified, so I have a US based money laundering, anti-money laundering certification. That certification allows various ways for you to gain eligibility. I can speak a lot more confidently in that regard. One is that to have a bachelor's degree has a minimum, and also to have 2 years of related experience. Let's say you don't have a bachelor's degree, they would look at the years of experience within that particular field, whether it be law, whether it be a control environment like internal audit or a bank control environment. So if you're like a teller, what I would suggest is look at, do you have any control functions within your branch or within your organizations that you may be interested in. You may not necessarily go to compliance automatically, but you may go to being an assistant credit officer. What does that assistant credit officer does? That person takes all of the documents and checks it back and makes sure that everything is as per the policy and procedure, that nothing is missing. That is a type of skill that is transferable into a full-fledged compliance environment. You follow me? Or
Yes.
you may have a unit compliance officer at your branch who needs an assistant. That's an opportunity to get another set of skills that can be transferred. Persons make it hard, and I know some of my colleagues will be upset about it. Really and truly, you just have to have an eye for detail, the right level of experience or exposure or education in order to meet the eligibility, and then you start to take your exams.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's close on this thought. But I got a closing question. But let's talk about Rotary. Rotary, yes.
Yes, Rotary, definitely.
You've been involved with Rotary. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess somewhere about 8 years now. Is that a fair guess? What the numbers looking like?
I'm at +5, so I'm at 6 years.
Okay.
This may make 6 years. Yeah.
You're at 6 years. You're a professional. You've always had a civic, philanthropic mindset, both you and your wife. Tell us why a professional should be a part of Rotary.
Sure. So the reality is Rotary originally started by several gentlemen who rotated meetings on their lunch breaks. And interesting enough, I have the opportunity now to be the regional lead for something called Rotary Means Business. And I tell persons as I speak about it, is that Rotary Means Business takes Rotary back to its original meaning. The philanthropic aspect of Rotary came about some 30, 40, 50 years later in mass. Yes, they had a project within Chicago where they put the first outside toilet out for persons to use and stuff of that nature, and so on and so forth. And you see all the work that's being done around the world with eradicating polio in so many countries. Why join Rotary? Because Rotary is service above self. It's giving back to your community that gave so much for your growth, so much for your financial, your mental, and your health growth, and your professional growth.
Right.
And I must say, always Rotary Club of Old Fort is always here for you. Please feel free to like, click, and subscribe.
Yes. How do I get more information on Rotary Old Fort with the club you're a part of?
Definitely. We are on all social media platforms. That's Rotary Old Fort on IG. That's Rotary Old Fort on Facebook, and Rotary Old Fort on LinkedIn. But of course. So my closing question was about the we had kind of briefly talked about this as well. In the gamut of financial services arena, where does someone in compliance or with compliance specialties and certifications and accreditations, is the word accreditations or accreditations? What is it? Tations? No. So you are a holder of a license if you're a CAMS holder, and that's for a particular period of time, and you have to be recertified. So it's not an accreditation. Okay, it's a designation.
It's a designation. Okay, I got you. So the question is, someone with a range of compliance related designations, where are they in the hierarchy of income in the financial services arena? This is the big
question. Big question.
Because listen, the scenario was, hey, listen, I'm trying to get out of this job. There's very little room for me to move up the chain in commercial banking. Where the opportunity is? Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I would lead persons to is I'd lead persons to the Google. But in all honesty, if you're in financial services, it notes a lot of the jobs.com and some of our research notes that compliance associates, assistants start roughly around 30, 35, and it could range north of $200,000, depends on where you are within that sphere. Also based on your qualifications, based on the risk attached to your particular organization. Okay. Obviously, most persons may hover within somewhere around that 70 to 105, 110 range. And that's country to country to country to country. Okay. And that's relative to, taxes within a state. For example, compliance officers within New York will be, highly compensated considering the tax levels and the high cost of living versus a rural area where you may be doing the same type of work, but $50 or $60 or $70,000 will go a lot further.
Yeah.
That's
Quant here. You've been watching Linked Up on LinkedIn.